Let's get the perspective of the Education Department and private schools. Joining us tonight is Department of Education Undersecretary Diosdado San Antonio and Thames International co-founder Joel Santos. Magandang gabi po sa inyong dalawa. First of all, Yusek San Antonio, ano pong gagawin ngayon ng Department of Education? There are calls for from several schools na magkaroon tayo ng academic freeze.
Ang DepEd naman po, we implement what the law provides. Nire-respeto po natin yung mga suspensions of classes announced by the local governments, and that could be a form of a freeze in their academic activities sa K-12. Pero po, even prior to the call for academic freeze, prior to the typhoons, we already issued a call for academic ease. Kasi po, when we monitor the first few weeks of classes, we noted that the learners were overwhelmed, not because the requirements were really very overwhelming, but we realized the 7 months of disengagement from learning activities have somehow aggravated this sense that the requirements being made to be submitted to their teachers were quite overwhelming. So we had to make adjustments on the requirements. We instructed our fellow teachers and school officials at the field units that they should make necessary adjustments, be more considerate, like do not be very strict with the deadlines, and allow the learners to work on their assignments in the assessment requirements at their own pace.
So, Joel, what do you think of what Yusek San Antonio said? On the other hand, there are some schools calling for an academic freeze until the end of the year. Should there just be selective easing or selective freezing?
I think the first thing is to first recognize that the learner is always at the center of what we're doing. And for every school, they have a different set of learner. Certain private schools, all their learners have the necessary gadgets and connectivity at home. For certain schools, it's a mix. Then of maybe half have access, some have, some don't. And then for certain schools, majority don't have access. So I think it should be really on a case-to-case basis. Because number one, every school has a different set of capabilities. Some schools are more prepared to teach online. For example, we've been teaching online for the past 2 years, but we still found it difficult. So imagine those who did it for the first time. So I actually am more for selective academic easing, as I call it, because academic freeze will not be beneficial to anybody. It will just deliver, for me, a big gap, and will make a lot of students really fall behind given the current situation.
Yusek San Antonio, marami rin ho nahihirapan sa Pilipinas because not all the families have the resources to get the required equipment for online learning.
The reason why we offered multiple distance learning delivery modalities is really to make sure that all types of learners, as mentioned by Sir Joel earlier, are provided learning experiences that match the resources they have at home. So those whose families have access to the internet and gadgets can do online. But we understand that majority of the learners we have in the public schools would not have these resources. So we implemented TV, radio-based learning. We printed the learning resources so that even if a family does not have access to any gadget, the learners would still have access to the learning resources, so learning can still proceed. So I also agree that it should really be on a case-to-case basis. And of course, most educators would know that freezing learning or stopping the provision of learning opportunities for the youngsters will not be beneficial to the youngsters we are supposed to serve. Because if it's really still possible for them to get the experience of learning something, even in these very trying times, that would be good for everybody.
So, Yusek San Antonio, from what what is happening at the moment? Sa January ba, makikita na natin at least a mixture of both face-to-face learning and online learning. Are we likely to see that in the new year?
Right now, we are also in the process of reviewing the possibility of limited face-to-face, especially in areas where COVID-19 risks is not very high or very low risk areas. I think there's a snowballing call from all sectors that we consider face-to-face. So we're taking a look at the situation and even considering our options on how we should proceed with it, so that when Secretary Liling makes the presentation to President Duterte, she would be able to provide a good, workable, practical, and implementable strategy in doing limited face-to-face. In effect, we will be able to do blended learning where one or twice a week the learners go to school and the rest of the week they're still home-based. Because we will have to do social distancing so the children cannot all come to school at once.
So, Joel,
things like this are being explored.
Joel, if this happens in the new year, is your school ready for blended learning, a mixture of face-to-face and online learning?
Yes, I think it is. I think all schools are actually preparing to go back to blended learning, or at least a mixture face-to-face. And more than that, I'm actually glad that Yusek San Antonio said that, because, other countries, despite the COVID situation, are really allowing the schools to really go on a limited face-to-face. And together with other schools, we discussed that actually we want to make an appeal to DepEd that even if learning continues online, we would like to request that we be given at least like one day to allow socialization for the students. And because the classroom is, all the facilities are empty, we can really do social distancing. I think we should also take note of the mental and wellness effect of the students. The more we keep them in the houses, and they're not even allowed to go to malls, right? What's going to happen to our kids, And so maybe in time, we're all going to come and present to DepEd some opportunities, and maybe some, hopefully, they'll see that even if it's just for socialization issues, they continue online, but they can go to class, even to school, even just for once a week. I think would really be much better for their health and wellness. So yes, we are ready to go back on a partial face-to-face anytime.
Joel Santos of Thames International and DepEd Yusek Diosdado San Antonio, maraming salamat po for joining us on The Final Word.